Hello fish fools, Jeff here. So this is my 40-gallon planted live bear community tank. I've had this tank set up about 10 months now. This was an upgrade from my 30-gallon, and when I moved, a lot of the plants were pretty dried up, particularly the Java moss, and it was looking brown and wasn't a whole lot of it. It wasn't bushy like this, but it has rebounded and plants are looking nice and green for the most part, and the Java moss has exploded and is covering pretty much everything, and I need to take some out, but what the hell am I going to do with it? So I've already taken some out. I did just do a water change and I pulled out a bunch of it from right here. Like these plants in the corner were all covered and smothered, and even right here in the middle I have a rock pile with Java fern pieces all attached to it, and that was, and it still is covered with Java moss, but even less. I mean, I did just try to pull out a good amount from there, but that's just a start. I need to pull out some more. Right here there's a mopani wood, a piece of mopani wood, a pillar piece, and this is all this Java moss all around it. And this is a 40-gallon breeder tank, so it's wider. So this coming all the way close to the back here, and this far up to the front. And this is, just looking at it, nice healthy growth. You can notice how the tips of the strands are a brighter green. That's just a sign of it's growing healthy. And here there's a good chunk. There's a thermometer with a suction cup up against the side here. I do want to keep some here, but not quite as much, so I need to pull some out. And for the most part, I want to pull most of this out. There'll still be some strands as it goes, but I'd rather have it just be like that in the back. So I did, as I mentioned, I did just do a water change, so I pulled some out and I moved some to some other tanks. I just dropped this in here. This is my 20-gallon long tank with Guppy and Endler hybrids, ton of Malaysian trumpet snails and shrimp. So initially I intended to keep Java moss out of this tank, but my plan was to make this primarily an anacarus tank. I started with 3 stems here, and as they grow to reach the surface, I'm clipping it and then putting partial pieces down and just letting it grow like that, and that's how I'm propagating it to spread. So, but now I'm just going to do most of that side of the tank and just let some Java moss grow over here. And we have some Guppies, babies, Guppy fry in the breeder box. Just put a little Java moss in there. I did that for a breeding project, and then I'm planning to separate some virgin females. Yeah, so, alright. That's where I put some of the Java moss. And here is my 10-gallon wild guppy tank. So I didn't really have a lot of plants in here. I made a couple attempts to have this be primarily a stem plant tank, but that didn't work out. I added this wasser tang a while back, but did not have any Java moss in here, so I just put all of this Java moss in here, and I hope that will help. Not seeing a lot of fry in here just because I didn't have much cover, but now I think with the Java moss I'll be able to increase the population. See how these are wild guppies are evolving. Had these over 3 years. I made a video pointing that out. Like a lot of them have almost like the starting of top swords, just from wild guppies with really short fins, and that's just naturally evolving. I haven't mixed any genes with them in here. Well, anyway, yeah, so got Java moss added here. And this is another 10-gallon tank that I have. This is not what I added to this tank. This is just Java moss has totally filled up the whole tank. I mean, this is what my 40-gallon is on its way to become, so I don't want that to happen there. Like, this is not intended to be a display tank, really, so I just let this fill up like that, but I don't want my 40-gallon to be filled like that. So I do want to try to contain the Java moss by removing some, but and I just point out those tanks that I moved some from, but I don't want to keep moving it to other tanks because they're just going to grow in those. Like, for instance, this other 40-gallon that I have right next to it, I want to keep Java moss out of this tank because I like it as it is, but I would run out of tanks to put it in as it just continues to grow. So one thing that I was thinking, or that I decided to do, is I'd like to give some away. I want to give it to another fellow hobbyist. And if you're familiar with this YouTube channel, a while back, a couple years ago, I created a Patreon page for any patrons to join. I offered fish and shrimp and plants to any patrons. I haven't really kept up with that, but I did ship out I did ship out some plants and fish to patrons, but now YouTube itself has its own similar thing for channel memberships. And what I was thinking was doing something, what I tried to do with Patreon back then is if anybody wants to join this channel as a member, they can have some Java moss. So I did just set it up, and it is, I believe it is currently pending as I'm speaking now. I think it's a 24-hour period where it needs to be approved. But what I had entered there was for the very first member to join this channel can have some Java moss. I will just send a portion to you if you're interested. And as long as it is in the U.S., in the continental U.S., so I don't know what it would be like to ship internationally or anything like that. And no promises on when. I wouldn't want somebody to join and expect it to be shipped the next day. It's just whenever I get a chance. I mean, you can just know that I would send it, but just no time frame. And then that would be for the first member, if anybody was interested to do that, just to get it started. Anybody who joins after that, I would still give Java moss to, and as long as be up to the member to cover shipping costs. And going forward beyond that, that's just a start. I want to try to do what I had in mind for Patreon back then, is to give away any fish or shrimp or plants that I'm able to propagate to channel members. So you can have the fish that you see in my videos, fish and shrimp and plants, you can add to your own aquariums at home. And I think it would be cool to, just knowing that fish and plants that grew in my aquariums, just to be out there would be pretty awesome, I think. So that's starting with the Java moss. So if you're interested, you can join the channel as a member, and even if you wanted to join them as a member anyway, even if you didn't want Java moss, you already had Java moss, and you just to show appreciation for the channel, that would be welcome and appreciated. So yeah, I have all this Java moss that just continues to grow, and I want to figure out a way to get, remove it, and what best way to remove it, to share it with other hobbyists, and then maybe further down the road fish and plants and shrimp as well. Alright, well that's it for now, and remember, I'm Jeff and I enjoy fishies. Thanks for watching.